he wasn't eating and I was getting irritated. I was like, please just eat, please. Why don't you eat this? How many times will I tell you eat? So he's like, Mama, don't get into a fit of rage. Fit of rage? ये क्या होता है? How was this?
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Parenthood. I'm your host, Neha Garg, and I'm so grateful you're here with us today. For those who are joining us for the first time, welcome to the Parenthood family. Each week, we dive into real life stories of parenthood, exploring the beautiful, messy, and often unexpected journey of juggling family, career, and self. Here on Parenthood, we are about sharing the highs, the lows, and everything in between with voices from diverse backgrounds and perspectives. Today, I have a truly inspiring guest joining me. That is Mahima. She wears many hats. She is a development sector professional, a writer, a podcaster, a trainer, and above all, a mother to a delightful little one. Mahima has walked a unique journey navigating early motherhood through challenges of postpartum depression, a pandemic, and her recent diagnosis, which has brought her newfound clarity on her mental health. Through it all, she has learned so much about resilience, partnership, and self discovery. So let's begin. Let's welcome Mahima on the podcast. Welcome, Mahima, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Neha. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Mahima. And to kick things off, let's get a little glimpse of who you are. If you could tell us about three words in which you could describe your personality, what would be those three words?
Yeah, before just like half an hour before we started recording, my sister-in-law was visiting and I was talking to her about this and I was asking her, I have no idea what three words can you tell me? So she was saying, she said some really nice stuff. She said, you are prolific, you're generous, you're, what was the other thing she said? Principled. And I was like, man, I have not ever thought of these words for myself. But my three words were work in progress. Those were the three words I had in mind.
That could be the title of your book as well. Coming to
Yes.
that, what would be
Answers
the
two
title of
questions.
your book?
Work in progress. I'll go with that. Very
And
good title.
and what chapter are you on currently?
I think I don't know. I always feel like I'm working on myself and I always feel like this is the biggest learning curve so
Yeah.
far. But yeah, that's what I feel right now also. That this is like a steep learning curve. Maybe not the biggest now that I've been through motherhood and early motherhood, I think that was the biggest learning
Yeah.
curve of learning about myself, working on myself, dealing with so many new things life is throwing at me and seeing how I respond to them, learning more about who I am through that.
Mm.
So after early motherhood, I would say, yeah, this is the part where I'm learning the most about myself and growing the most, I think.
Is that brought on by something specific, or is this just a part of life, or a step in your journey where you are ultimately traveling to?
No, it's brought on by what you just spoke about, and I was surprised at how much you know about me. And then I remembered that I filled that form which I wrote up. I was thinking, ये सब मैंने कहाँ कहा है? When did I say all this stuff? But yeah, okay, I sent you all that stuff. So yeah, the diagnosis which you mentioned, I was about now a year back. I was diagnosed with ADHD and OCPD,
Yeah.
attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and obsessive compulsive personality disorder.
Yeah.
So these two things have most people when I tell them they get like really, oh, I'm so sorry, it's really
Yeah.
heartbreaking, blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, I'm so happy. I'm so like ecstatic, and it hasn't worn off. People said that sometimes you feel euphoria after a diagnosis and it wears off. For me, so far, it hasn't happened. I'm really happy because I think this has really helped me understand my own brain so much better. And it's helping me organize my life in a way that works around my brain. And, I think typically as women, we are really hard on ourselves. And
Yeah.
I used to be, and I still am often. We would when people say nice adjectives about us, we think ये तो मैंने कभी सोचा भी नहीं, literally never
Right.
thought of this. And then when it's about criticism, we double down on ourselves and we are really cruel to ourselves. I think I'm still learning how not to be, but I was definitely very cruel in the sense I would say, think. for example, ADHD makes it hard to focus on what feels like a boring task to me.
Right.
If it's exciting, if it's creative, I am hyper focused on it.
Right.
Then, like, I can go for 8 hours without realizing where the time went.
Yeah.
But if it is something that's dull and not not inspiring me, not creatively energizing me, then I it's really hard for me to focus on something. I often Typical ADHD thing is pick up a hobby, leave the hobby, pick up
Right.
another hobby, leave the hobby. There's a guitar in my house, there's a treadmill in my house, there's 100 things, there's a acrylic paints in my house, there's chalk paints in my house, there's all of these relics of hobbies I picked up and then never saw through to the end. um, and then I feel so when I would see this, I would see them as failures. I would see them as, oh, you can't stick with one thing. But then now that you realize that, oh, this is part of my brain chemistry,
Yeah.
this is how my brain functions, and there are so many good things that come out of it, like the hyper focus I mentioned, like the fact that I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because I've picked up and dropped so many hobbies. So I can pretty much have a conversation with most people about something that they are super interested in, because I've had that interest at least for some time
Yeah.
and gone really hyper focused into it at least for some time.
Yeah.
So it makes me a very fun person actually to be around, because you can talk to me about most things.
Yeah.
So these are the positives that I've learned to appreciate about myself, and I've tried to learn to forgive myself for some of the things that I saw as shortcomings earlier. So
Yeah.
that's the work really that I'm doing on myself right now. It's hard because it's like I'm nearly 40, and it's really late in life to be discovering new things about yourself, I think. By this time as a child you think, oh, by 40 I'm like done, I've figured it
Good.
all out, sab kuch ho gaya, I've sorted. But no, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. So it's exciting, and that's what makes it a high learning curve part
Yeah.
of my life.
Beautiful. I think I really love how you put it, and that, you are very excited about your diagnosis, because everywhere there is this, like, speaking of myself, I myself have GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and clinical depression. So both at the same time. And I am, as you said, the I 6 years in and the euphoria hasn't worn off, in that sense, because at least it explains what I am going through. It explains
Correct.
why I am the way I am, without needing to excuse myself for it every time. And it's very exciting, journey to be on, in a way, as a curious person, because this is one of the other hobbies that you pick up to, know
Mhm.
more about yourself, and know more about your diagnosis. So in that sense, I really relate to it. And now, coming back to your family, my mom, tell us something about your family, your partner Salil and your son. Tell us about them.
So Salil and I, we met around 12 years back. And in 2012, yeah, so
Wow,
almost exactly
exactly.
12 years back. And we got married 10 and a half round years back. We're going to have, yeah, we just, this year was our 10th anniversary, next year will be 11. Uh, and we were both civil servants at the time, we in under training. So we met at the training academy where we were both right after writing the exam, got
Yeah,
in there. And it was his training academy. He's in the income tax services, and so he was in the academy for 2 years, and I was passing by doing a short term 3-month course there. But yeah, 3 months was enough. We got to know each other. We became good friends. Then we started dating, and then we fell in love. He proposed, and then by the time three and a half months were done, we had gone through the whole, like I said, steep curve.
yeah,
Uh, so that's how we met. I think the thing we aligned on the most, the reason we connected the most was that was a place in our life where we had come into this new world, right, of the civil
yeah.
services, and both of us had come from the private sector. We had worked before, we were engineers. So we had that kind of technical mindset way of looking at things, and we had also come with this idealized notion of
दुनिया
desh ki seva,
बदलेंगे.
national service development, blah blah. So and then we came into the world of civil services where not everyone thinks like that. So for us it was a bit of a culture shock, and it was nice to have like one ally
Yeah.
Not just one, but there were maybe very, very few people like that
Yeah.
who thought like that and had that value system. So we really connected on our value system because it was a rare oasis in in a otherwise desert that we were in, that we found ourselves in quite surprisingly to for us. So yeah, that's how we connected. Around 5 6 years into our marriage, we had a baby. He's 5 now. He's amazing. I don't know what to tell you about him. He's everything. He's my favorite person. Salil
Wow.
has been demoted to second favorite now.
All, I think all husbands go through the same,
Yeah.
poor things, but
That's okay. I'm also his second favorite now. I'm okay with that. I think
hopefully,
we are
yeah.
both okay with that.
Yeah.
We understand that this no this one deserves rank one. We are
Yeah.
happy with rank two, both of
Yeah.
us.
But so many years with Salil, I think it's a testament. It's a not just a testament, a beautiful testament to your connection. But what I'm really interested to know is that how has your relationship or connection evolved with becoming parents? How has that moved or shifted or evolved, whatever we want to call it?
Oh yeah, big time. It's like a new marriage. I think after having a baby, you kind of rediscover your partner in many ways, and you rediscover things you align on and you don't align on. Both, because parenting, I realized after becoming a parent too late, and I tell single people now and they don't listen. But when you're single and you're dating, this conversation never comes up, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't want to ask my boyfriend how he would be as a father. It's a
Mm.
weird question to ask. It feels like it's too early if you ask it on a date, and if it's too late if you're already committed, then you're
Yeah.
like, nah, I'm not going to dump my boyfriend because 10 years later he might be a different father. We don't know
Yeah.
whether how we will be when we cross that bridge when it comes and all that. But yeah, that's a big conversation that gets missed when we are looking for a partner. And parenting makes you like rediscover your partner. So I think for us, the first 5 years were kind of an extension of dating. I mean,
Yeah.
we intentionally didn't want to have kids at that time because we wanted to like, we had a, like I said, very fast relationship.
Yeah.
Where we went into, we committed to each other quite early. We had a year after that, but our families knew, and it was like
Yeah.
the year leading up to our wedding, and also we were still already in that committed zone, already engaged, sort of. So for us after shadi, we were like, we did a lot of travel together. We worked around each other's careers very well. He was earlier working in Bangalore, then I got a job, very prestigious job in my service in Delhi. So then he moved cities for me, and it was like really lovely. We supported each other's careers. Um, and we both used to work late nights and then come back home and say like, oh, okay, 11 p.m, let's go for a movie now.
Yeah.
That sort of life, and we wanted that freedom at that
Yeah.
point of time. So we knew that once you have a kid, you can't go for a 11 p.m. movie.
Yeah.
And so we kind of pushed that decision till the point where we felt like, okay, now we've had all the masti we wanted to, and
Yeah.
now we're ready to kind of like for the next chapter. So I think that was a very healthy thing we did.
Yeah.
We were also like not super young when we got married. I think I was 28, he was 29 or 29 30, aisa kuch.
Yeah.
And so we had lived the single life also enough,
Yeah.
I think, to grow to a point where we were ready for marriage. And then same thing, I saw that worked well for me. It helped person for me. Um, there's obviously a bit of luck involved, a lot of luck
Yeah.
involved, but also it helps, I think, if you are mature when you look for your partner,
Yeah.
emotionally mature, and that applies even more to parenthood. I think that I don't think you should become a parent if you are not emotionally mature enough to feel secure in your self, in your body, in your relationship, in your marriage, everything. So I kind of like repeated that pattern. I said, as long as I wanted to do my masti of being single and
Yeah.
enjoy the single life, I did that. Now I want to enjoy the only with my
Married.
partner
Yeah.
life. Yeah. And then I'll come to motherhood, and then we'll work on that chapter when we so there's no resentment, there's no feeling of, oh, I
Yeah.
missed this
Yeah.
part, and look at those guys having fun and I'm
Yeah.
here with the baby. So that I think was also a good decision in hindsight, and it also helped us discover each other far better as people. We knew each other very thoroughly by the time we became parents. And yet, like life
Yeah.
throws curveballs, right? Like, yet you discover new things about your partner when they are a co-parent.
Yeah.
So, for example, we discovered 6 years after our marriage that his parenting was very different style from mine. And
Yeah.
it's because his parents parented him very differently from the way mine did.
Yeah.
Um, Mine were very on the bright side, very very close, nurturing, very involved in our day to day homework. Best
Yeah.
friend कौन है, school match क्या हुआ, who's your favorite teacher,
Yeah.
how is this teacher treating you, वो you miss school that day, did you catch up to that, when is this exam due, all of this. His parents were very laissez-faire, that
Yeah.
you're fine, you're fed, you're happy. You're going to some school, okay, good. So that's like they were very chilled out parents, and both styles have their pluses and minuses.
Yes.
And so both of us brought those pluses and minuses, and there are not super compatible because they're very polar opposite designs of styles of parenting. And I think over the years we have, and we will continue to kind of find a way to meld those two styles into each other in a way with where it's most beneficial for our kid. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have to kind of check myself if I'm becoming too controlling, like I'm trying to check everything, and I need to let him have his space, even though he's young, very young right now. But with age, I have to like kind of learn to let
Yeah.
him be his own person, not be controlled in a very close quarters by me, and learn to kind of give him the nurturing environment, the safety of home, but without getting intrusive. And
Yeah.
then on his side, he has to kind of learn to pay more attention and be like, yeah, he's happy to let the child play and be free, but again, the basics, hygiene factor of safety, physical, emotional, mental safety, that stuff he's learning more from me. So we both learning from each other, kind of. It's not a very frictionless
Yeah.
process, of course. but but we are trying to kind of grow together as parents and try to do what's figure out the midway which is best for our kid.
Yeah. And what's the vibe like in your household, Maima? You said, you have very different styles of innate styles of parenting, I would say, and together you bring in kind of cohesive style which comes up eventually. So, like, what is the day-to-day life like? Do you have a routine?
Yeah, yeah. Now that our kid goes to school, there's a routine which is defined by his school, basically.
Yeah.
So, and it is interestingly like you said, it's actually an amalgamation of these two styles, and there are periods where one style is more and the other style is less. Because now earlier we used to live close to my parents, and so I think our style of my side of the
Yeah.
family style was more heavy on him, which was good and necessary because he was an infant, right? So
Right.
they need that sort of close quarters observation and caregiving. But now we live in another city. We moved a year back, and now we are kind of like just the nuclear family, me, Salil, and our kid. That's it. So between me and Salil, now we have to manage 24 hours. So
Yeah.
we do pass the parcel.
Yeah.
So when the parcel is in me, then the parcel is very closely care given for. Then usually meal times and bath times and nighttime chatter that'll be on my plate, and taking him outside, playing with him,
Yeah.
running around, school pickup, drop off. Actually, he does drop off, I do pick up. But yeah, the more open
Outside.
play kind
Yes.
of things happen with his dad.
Yeah.
So now we have to do that, pass the parcel, because otherwise, how will we do our jobs also?
Yeah.
So between the school and the two of us, we do that. And that kind of, I think it gives our kid a kind of flavor of all the various styles.
Right, right. And you said, like between the two of you, you manage everything. So how does that managing work, Maima? I'm very interested to know because I think both of your jobs are very, very demanding, and you have so many things to do other than mothering. So how do you do it all?
I don't know if I do it all. I've changed a lot in my career. I've changed a lot of gears after becoming a mother. Because I became a mother right around the time of the pandemic. As soon as my maternity leave ended, the pandemic began. So I
Wow.
never really went back to full-time office work.
Yeah.
Because I transitioned from maternity leave into work from home.
Right.
And then until before that, just the day before my maternity leave started, I was in this very high pressure job. We used to be called into office weekends and no holidays and no public holidays, nothing, late nights, early mornings. So it was very hectic and totally not conducive to having a child, I think. But the timing kind of worked out in a way that as soon as my kid was born, also I was working on the Swachh Bharat mission, and 2019 the Swachh Bharat mission ended, and
Yeah.
2019 my kid was born. So that high pressure period was over by the
Right.
time my kid came
Right.
around. So then after that, I kind of took more consulting gigs, part-time jobs, jobs with more flexibility. I would work on a project basis or a contract basis, and I've not had a full-time, full engagement, high pressure, go to office kind of job since I became a mother. And
Yeah.
that's really helped me kind of align my day around my kids' day. So like right now I'm working on a project with an international NGO. I work from home. My boss is based in, I work from India here. My boss is based in Ireland. Another one is in Washington. And they're like, we're all on different time zones, and
Yeah.
they're super respective of my time. Like I told them that these are the hours my kid is in school. It's ideal for me to do calls in these hours
Yeah.
because I'll be undisturbed and I don't have anything else distracting me or on my mind. And so they, every email they send to even a third party, they'll say Mahima's
Wow.
preferred hours are these. So they really respect my time, my boundaries. They never call me on a weekend. They never even email. If they email, I'm not expected to respond.
Right.
So in that way, I've now started picking jobs which help me work with people who respect my boundaries. And
Right.
that was something I think I never learned until I became a mother. I was never respectful of my own boundaries. I
Right.
used to be take a great pride in calling myself a workaholic, but I think in India, being a workaholic means just being exploited by others,
Yeah.
and bosses who will not respect your
Right.
private time and your personal life.
Yeah.
And so-called work-life balance is a myth in for
Yes.
most Indians, I think.
Unless you work for yourself, and that
Yeah.
also, that
There
also
also it's
there.
very challenging. Yeah.
Yes.
There it's even more because the line between your time and work time is completely blurred
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was good for me in those years to work for these workaholic bosses and these high stress environments because did a lot of learning.
Yeah.
And again, because I had a kid later in life, I had already achieved a lot of
Yeah.
professional success. So for me, it wasn't like an unmet need which
Yeah.
really drove me
Right.
afterwards. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, I've done that, and I'm very happy with how that has worked out.
Yeah.
And now for me, it is important still. It gives me joy, fulfillment, money,
Yeah.
and impact and all of those satisfactions. So work is still important for me, but now it is not the most important thing for me. My kid is the most important thing. And I like that I've been able to and privileged to be at a stage of life where I've able to pick between jobs where I
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm going to work for you only if you respect these
This.
three conditions of mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at this, again, at this age and stage, you have the privilege of making these demands and people being okay with them. And
Yeah.
I've also been lucky. I think international organizations are a little more respectful than
Yeah.
Indians
Yeah.
in that
That's true.
respect.
That's true. Let's rewind a bit, Maima, into the beginning of your motherhood journey. You said you planned for your baby. So how was it like? Was it, everything that you wished for and prepared for, or did it throw you any kind of curveballs? What was the pregnancy journey like? What was the motherhood journey like for you?
Pregnancy was by and large, I think, smooth. I had we used to have those regular visits with the doctors and regular ultrasounds, all of that. I was very happy my husband would come along for everything, and I noticed much later that most husbands weren't doing that every visit, and I was very happy that I didn't have to ask him to
Yeah.
do that. And we had a little bit of a thoda sa some bleeding and all happened in the middle, and my doctor put me on some progesterone injections, which I got every week for like 2-3 months. But other than that, it was a fairly normal pregnancy. I you went to work till the 8th month, and so it went as well as you could expect. But I think the delivery was very traumatic, and afterwards also my postpartum care was not very. I would have could have done it better. I think I could have managed it better. I think I just wasn't informed enough. And so I didn't have many friends who were parents, so I
Right.
didn't have those first-hand stories to learn from also.
Yeah.
Um, my delivery was traumatic mostly because I think my OBGYN was abusive. And she kind
Really?
of like, I had a C-section. First, there was I had went for an elective C-section because my child was already baby was very big. During the ultrasound, they said that the baby's weight is going beyond what you can deliver vaginally. And then
Normally.
I don't like the word
Yes,
normally.
that's why I said it.
Every birth is normal and no birth is normal. There's
Yeah.
nothing normal about childbirth.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But anyway, so I don't use that word. So, but yeah, so because of that, and then I spoke to some women in my family, and apparently been a thing in my family that no woman is able to deliver vaginally, and often they'll induce labor. And then I've had cousins who've gone through like 24, 36 hours of pain, and then kind of passed out or collapsed, or the baby's been in distress, and then they had to do a C-section. So like 3 or 4 women, I was very lucky. The day before I went for the delivery, they gathered together, and it just came up naturally. I was asking people because I was going to go get induced the next day. My doctor had told me, and like 3 of them were like, don't do this. We did this, it was horrible. And I was like, hey, how come you all are telling me now? Like,
I feel you.
I've been pregnant for 9 months, you guys have seen, right? But anyway, so I got really lucky that they just told me the night before. They said just go for a C-section. In our family, inducing never works. Anyway, inducing generally works very
Yeah.
few cases, and in our family it never has. So it could be genetic or whatever, but don't go for it. Anyway, your ultrasound is showing the baby's big.
Yeah.
So then I just said that, and the moment I said that, the doctor was about to give me that
Yeah.
medicine for inducing, and then she kind of gave me like a dirty look, and I was like, "Oh, you want the easy way out?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't think surgery is an easy thing to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
but sure, I want the easy way out." That was should have been my first red flag. Actually, first red flag should have been during the pre natal visits only. I think she would often pawn me off to some junior doctors or not. If I said like I used to have massive swelling in my feet, I would tell her that my feet are really hurting, and she would say, "तो ये तो
Normal.
होता ही है. You want to be a mother, you have to bear all this."
Yeah.
And I think that should have been my first red flag. A person who doesn't treat you with that basic dignity.
Yeah.
And sadly, it's very common in the OBGYN profession, I think, to abuse young mothers, would-be mothers,
Yeah.
belittle their needs and their concerns, and
माँ
treat
बनना
as
आसान थोड़ी है.
आसान थोड़ी है, हाँ, as if some award we are being given.
Yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, so and just like shaming women for having feelings or feeling pains in their body,
Yeah.
and belittling their concerns, and being all of that stuff is all too common in that profession. Somebody actually actively recommended this Dr. May, and she was like the head of the OBGYN department of Delhi's best hospital.
Wow.
So I was very confident that I was in good hands. And like the later, like a day or two before my delivery, that lady told me, by the way, oh yeah, she yelled at me during my since
How
she
can
was delivering, she was having a vaginal birth without any painkiller. So she was screaming, and she said she yelled at me for screaming, which I was like, isn't
how can
screaming like the most normal reaction you have to childbirth? What is wrong with it? But anyway, I didn't see any of those red flags, stupidly went ahead with the same doctor. And so she kind of, so she yelled at me during my surgery. So during the surgery, there was some minor complication, I think. And she just started screaming at all the doctors around her. And I'm awake, right? And I'm lying
yeah.
open on the table. There's nothing I can do right now to help you. But she's yelling at me, like, what was your blood sugar? What was your this? And I'm like, dude, you've been tracking my blood sugar. I've been sending you. You know my blood sugar. You know everything.
And
And
even
she's
though you
like,
are awake, you are not like you are
I
now
can't help you.
abdomen down and you
My intestines are in your hands, dude. I
Yeah.
can't help you at this point. Like yelling at me is not going to help you. And I remember this poor anesthesiologist who was near my head, who was tracking my vitals. She was like doing, it's okay, it's okay. She was trying to calm me down. And I was like, listen, I'm obviously getting stressed out because if the doctor is yelling, then am I like about to die right now? What's
Yeah.
happening here?
Yeah.
And so my thought was, okay, let me just take deep breaths and kind of de-link from this situation because I can't help her. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. The best I can do to help is keep my pulse rate, BP, all of that under control and not
Yeah.
get hyper right now. So I was trying to do that, but yeah, she kind of like yelled at me, and while she had my blood on her clothes and all, it was very, very traumatic. And then later also was like shaming me for some stuff. Oh, you didn't eat this, you didn't do that exercise, whatever, some shit. I didn't even understand what the complication was or how it was related, but I'm pretty sure shaming the patient on the table, lying open on the table, is not the answer.
Right.
Uh, yeah, and then even then I didn't have the in that state you're so vulnerable. Yeah. You've
Yeah.
lost like half your blood. You
Mm.
are not in a state to take a moral stand. So I
Yeah.
am apologizing to her when
Yeah.
she is abusing me. It was so messed up
Yeah.
that I was like, I think it took me a long time to kind of get over what had happened there. And
Right.
I remember I love watching Grey's Anatomy, by the way. I watch every season. And for after this, for like 2 years, I
Yeah.
could not see it because I would see like the patient on the table who you never think about. You're
Yeah.
thinking about the doctors and
Doctors.
all
Yeah.
the relationship drama they're having. So, and I would just be empathizing with the patient that what about that poor person lying there on the table? And it would be very, very difficult for me. So, I mean, that's a minor difficulty, but generally, I think it was very,
Yeah.
very traumatic.
Yeah.
So, and then afterwards, also, I don't think anyone in India prioritizes the mother's care. They
Right.
prioritize the baby's care.
Baby. Yeah.
And I think it should not be that way. The mother is there to care for the baby,
Yeah.
but you need to care for the mother and tell her to care for herself. Which again, nobody told me. It was all like, oh, you must breastfeed, you must, that breastfeeding mania kind of was
Yeah.
overwhelming. And
Mm.
so I was like not sleeping. I was constantly awake. I was trying to do everything by myself. I
Yeah.
had family around, but they are also struggling. My husband, first time father,
Yeah.
both sets of grandparents, his parents were there for a week, my parents lived close by, but nobody really knew, was everybody was new to handling children, handling a baby, and everyone was kind of looking to me for answers, which
Yeah.
was very unnerving because I don't have answers either.
Yeah.
I'm also first time mother. I have no
Yeah.
clue. Just because the baby came out of me doesn't mean I am instantly overnight
Yeah.
qualified in
And
baby
it's
care and
not that
management.
those motherly instincts,
Yeah,
बच्चे के साथ साथ आपकी instincts का भी जन्म हो जाता है. It's not
correct.
that.
Huh.
It's
Like how to swaddle a baby. I don't know how to swaddle a baby. How would I know? Like,
yeah.
if you don't know, how will I know? Because a
Yeah.
baby came out of me. I'm swaddle. Some course has been downloaded in my head. So something. It's really random, and I used to put all this pressure on myself because I used to feel like, no, no, I'm the mother. I should know. I'm
Yeah.
on maternity leave. I used to feel like this is the one job I have. I have to do this job well.
Yeah.
And so I think I put so much pressure on myself physically, mentally, emotionally, that I was like up at all hours of the night, all day, 22 hours, being up straight, being up, like getting 15 minutes of sleep, 45 minutes of sleep. It was dysfunctional. And like now looking back, I know that there are JAPAs and there are people you can hire who are qualified to in
Yeah.
baby management, and
Yeah.
they will allow you to at least get a good night's sleep. And I think I went through postpartum depression only because of sleeplessness. If I had slept properly, and I'm a person who could sleep 14 hours at a stretch before I'm becoming a mother,
Yeah.
and suddenly you cut me down to 15 minutes, 45 minutes, it's going to take a toll on any human being.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that I should have, me or somebody around me should
Yeah.
have seen that and intervened. And I guess none of us had the knowledge. And
But
again, it's not something that's spoken about at all, that mothers
ah,
need to be cared for.
yeah. Yeah.
Everyone talks about baby care, but nobody talks about new mothers care.
Yeah.
And so some my mom tried a bit. She brought some random ladies who would do massage, and I, another thing I realized was that these that everybody has an opinion on a new mother and
Yeah.
how she should take care of the child.
Yeah.
Like even with So for example, with my domestic help, I've always had a professional relationship. You come, you do your job, you go.
Yeah.
If I have feedback, I'll give you. If I have directions, I'll give you. And then thank you, bye bye.
Definitely.
But, and that was, had been my relationship all through. But the moment I became a mother, I saw a lot of unsolicited advice coming from them also. So this like massage lady I spoke about, she would come and start shaming me about feeding formula to my child. And she would say, no, no, mother's milk is best and all that crap. So breastfeeding was really hard for me because again I was under so much stress. I think that kind of reduced the milk production in my body, and then I literally did not enjoy being a mother until I stopped breastfeeding.
Right.
Till then it was just traumatic, trauma non-stop. 3.5 months I think I lasted, only that long. And even all through that time I had to supplement with formula.
Yeah.
And I'd been, again, you are taught this gold standard of motherhood is the
Yeah.
mother whose breast milk is flowing from the taps
Yeah.
uncontrolled, and then her
Yeah.
baby is
Your
happy
clothes
and
are soaked. हमारे तो कपड़े भीग जाते थे,
right.
हमारी तो नदियां बह जाती थी, हम तो कहीं
Correct.
नहीं जा सकते थे. And I'm like, good for you.
Good for you, man. I know. And it's a, and again with these stories now, often there's a lot of lack of sympathy and basic sensitivity. To tell such a story to a mother who's struggling is really, really hurtful.
Yeah.
So I used to get all of this kind of unsolicited advice from other mothers, sometimes men also talking to me about breastfeeding. Why aren't you breastfeeding your child? I'm like, F off, none of your business, dude. Like, how is this your business? How is it okay for you to talk to me about this? I
Yeah.
literally felt like I remember one time, and I was like, just shortly after I brought the baby home from the hospital, I was walking around with the baby on my shoulder and trying to burp or something. And then somebody came at the door. I opened the door. It was some saleswoman lady came to tell me about some salon she had opened or something. And the moment I opened the door, she's like, how are you holding the baby? ऐसे नहीं पकड़ते बच्चा, ऐसे कैसे पकड़ा? I felt like banging the door on her face. Like now, literally राह चलते लोग आकर के बेल बजा के मुझे motherhood advice देंगे. It was very, very horrible. And now I can laugh about it. At that time, it was
Yeah.
just so overwhelming because you're constantly made to feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Because now I've realized there's so many high standards for motherhood. There are no standards for fatherhood, by the way.
Yeah.
You show up, you're gold.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
motherhood, there are so many standards and they're so impossible to meet. Because I've also met friends now who've been judged for breastfeeding too much, too long. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a golden period beyond
Do
that. If you breastfeed,
anything right.
it's
You
messed
can't
up.
do anything right. If you are a
Nothing you
mother,
can do is right.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Again, something I should have known of before. I wish someone had told me this stuff. I used to shout at my mother sometimes. I would be like, why didn't you tell me this stuff?
Yeah.
Like when I would be suffering sometimes and she would say, oh, this is normal. I would say, you
Yeah.
should have told me this is normal. I would have gone in this with my eyes open. I
Yeah.
had no idea that these were expectations. This is the kind of judgment. This is the kind of cruelty you face when all you're trying to do is your best with your child, and
Yeah.
you're given so much judgment and unnecessary, unsolicited, often factually incorrect advice.
Yeah.
That
This has
just
been my biggest pet peeve, Mahima. With pregnancy and with childbirth, everybody eulogizes how great it is, how sacrificial a mother is. Okay, fine. You put me on a pedestal, I'm fine with it. Like I used to fight about it earlier, but now I'm fine with it. You want to put me on a pedestal, you do it. But tell me the truth. Don't gloss over the gory details just because you want me to do that. And it's horrible. It's horrible to see women go through something which is such a, I think, such a normal part of life, normalized part of life, with no knowledge. we
Yeah,
just we just go through it, and then we realized, oh my god. And our eyes open to the wounds of so many women who have come before us. And I'm like, oh
yeah,
my god, she was going through this when this child happened. She went through all of this.
yeah.
It's so, I think it's so unfair.
It's crazy, yeah. I mean, I don't even feel like I was ever put on a pedestal by anyone. I've never felt any pedestal under me. I think the woman on the pedestal is a fictitious woman who doesn't exist. She's,
Yeah.
the perfect mother. She's the mother India.
Sharma ji ki beti.
She does not exist. Yeah, वो
Yeah.
शर्मा जी की मम्मा है. वो she does not exist. She is that perfect mother who has the perfect pregnancy, the perfect childbirth, the perfect breastfeeding journey, the
Yeah.
perfect postpartum body, the perfect. recipes for cooking homemade gluten-free food for her child. All of that good for that person. That person doesn't exist. No woman can live up to that. And it's kind of like it's a very toxic, well-designed process whereby women are constantly put in their place.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was saying, earlier I had this professional relationship with people around me. And then when moment I became a mother, everyone started feeling free to jump with
Yeah.
throw judgment at me, throw advice at me unsolicited. And then I felt like, oh, now this is how you show a woman her place in
Yes.
society.
Yeah.
That aap kuch bhi kar lo, whatever, however big you can become at work and all. You could be lady prime minister of India. When you become a mother, you come back to this level, and now we
Yeah.
will show you your place is as a
Right.
failed mother. Every
Yeah.
mother is a failed mother in some
Yeah.
respect or the other. She's made to feel like a failure. It's
Yeah.
it's so it's so toxic, and it's so deeply embedded in society. Like even the mothers, like you're saying, when you see other women, you realize what they were going through. But again, you don't see a lot of empathy that's come out of that
Yeah.
process. Often it's like that
हमने भी तो
trauma has been passed on to the next
या
one.
क्योंकि
Because
सास भी
I
कभी
suffered,
बहू
now you
थी.
should also suffer.
या इट्स एग्जैक्टली दैट इट इज क्योंकि सास भी कभी बहू थी सिंड्रोम दैट आई
हाँ,
हैव डन दिस नाउ यू विल सफर दिस एंड दैट इज हाउ द वर्ल्ड गोज दैट हमने किया तुम भी करो और
correct.
तुम्हारे बच्चे भी करेंगे आगे.
So if I suffered, how can you have a smooth journey?
या
So from women, it's that. From men, it's mostly apathy. So it's a very difficult thing. It's unnecessarily made to be difficult. It's harder than it's already very hard. It's already the hardest thing you'll ever do.
या
And then it's made harder by the people around you. So yeah, that's what I keep telling, like young mothers, would be mothers, women thinking, hoping, planning to be mothers. I'm like, go in it with your eyes open. Do it. It's a beautiful thing. It's
या
the best thing I ever did,
या
even despite all of this stuff. But you have to go in it with your eyes open, and that'll help you kind of choose the right people to surround yourself with,
राइट.
get the right help,
या
uh, forgive yourself for
या
things that you don't shouldn't have to forgive yourself for,
राइट.
because people will make you feel guilty. They'll make you feel like a bad mom. There's only mommy guilt exists. There's no daddy guilt.
डैडी गिल्ट.
होती नहीं है वो चीज. Why? Because nobody makes her dad feel bad about anything.
Oh, if
Again,
anything,
dad
they
shows
are
up, they're
great.
gold.
Yeah, they are good. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, you do this also. You do this also. Wow.
I
Yeah.
was being given some. There's a book I co-authored on Swachh Bharat, and the book release happened a month or 45 days, I think, after the birth of my child. And so, very young baby, first time I left the house, went so long. My husband, I'm up on stage with the book release and all happening, and he's holding the baby. And this lady comes up to me. She's like, "Oh, you're so lucky. Your husband is holding the." I'm like, 45 days. This child has been attached to me 24 hours.
He produced the
First,
baby. He co-produced the baby. So,
first 15 minutes, this he's with the man without me being around, and suddenly laurels are being thrown at him. And I was like, do you understand that I am still breastfeeding this child? I stay up all night with this child. Nobody's ever come and told me what a great mother I am. I'm
yeah,
happy that my husband is supportive and all of
yeah,
that, and he's being given recognition for it. Happy for him. But where is my recognition? It's a
yeah,
natural question to ask. If I'm working
yeah,
300 times more than him,
yeah,
then where is my 1% of the recognition that he's getting? I don't get that. So then that lady was also like, oh yeah, you're right, actually I never thought of it this way. Yeah, why am I appreciating him? Why am I not appreciating you? You're a mother, you've written a book, and
But
I'm not somebody.
such a beautiful thing, yeah. You told her and she recognized her, that she was not doing it. How many people can we now count on our fingers and say they would
Yeah,
be able to do that? To be able to stand up and just recognize your own assumptions, your own biases, and say, yes, I have been wrong all
yeah.
throughout. But Maima, what is most intriguing to me through all this is how did you come out of it? How did you survive that time? It just sounds, was it just time doing its bidding or was it something else? Because it sounds horrific.
Yeah, I mean, there are people have with much bigger challenges here. Like, let's be real. I have a lot of privileges. I have helpful, supportive family. Blah 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 blah. A lot of privileges, but I think one big thing was sleep. like I said, sleep deprivation brought on a lot of it, and as the child grows, you just sleep better.
Yeah.
That helped. Then I, supportive family, yeah, parents would take on a few hours here and there. Then pandemic hit, it kind of made it become worse. My
Yeah.
mental health, everyone's mental health suffered, and if you're already vulnerable, already going through something, it gets worse. So it got worse because of the pandemic. Then again, it recovered a bit after the pandemic ended and life started becoming normalish. My kids started going to preschool. Then we had a health scare with him when 2 years back around Diwali, he was we lived in Delhi, Gurgaon, and the air quality there, of
Yeah.
course, legends, stuff of legends. So yeah, it was going to always be bad. I always wanted to not raise a kid there, but then because of the pandemic, the air kind of cleared up, and it was like
Yeah.
it kind of became a back of the mind thing. Then 2 years back, yeah, around Diwali, it was back in full force, and my son was suddenly. We thought he had a cough and cold, but suddenly he said, "I can't breathe."
Oh,
And he was just 3 that time, and it was like Choti Diwali, so there was no one, no doctors, no one available. So I had messaged some moms group in the colony, and like 20 moms suddenly take him to the hospital right now, take him to the ER. This happened with my baby. This happened with my baby, and then we took him, and he was like in the ICU on Diwali. On 2 3 days he was kept there. They diagnosed him with childhood asthma, and it was like a very very shitty part of it. And then after that it was really bad, because after that, even after he was discharged from there, we couldn't, he couldn't travel for some time. I wanted to leave Delhi immediately, but then he couldn't travel for some time because he was still getting a lot of nebulizer, inhaler, ye wo. And I became very hyper vigilant about air quality. I used to be like constantly, checking AQI of bedroom, drawing room. वहाँ भी उतना भी, there's a lot of difference
yeah.
in Delhi. And I bought these mega big costly air purifiers, and I would set up programs that if he gets up at 8 a.m., then 6 a.m. the hall air purifier should start on. So I became very, very vigilant about it. There would be gaps in windows, I would seal them with tape, because udhar se bhi there's smoke coming.
Yeah.
So it was very bad for my mental health, because I became this crazy obsessed
Hypervigilant.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was very, very bad. So then again, my mental health dipped there. Now I think then that's when we took the, for other people it seems difficult decision. For me, it was very easy, that I'm getting the hell out of here. So then we moved. I asked my husband, you apply for a transfer wherever you go. I will quit my job. I don't care. This is more important. We'll go somewhere. So then we moved to a tier 2 city which has very little pollution. जीरो तो इंडिया में कहीं भी नहीं, आई थिंक, बट लिटिल, वेरी लिटिल pollution, a lot of greenery around, and also we moved houses. It came again at the cost of being away from my family. We used to live very close to my parents in Gurgaon.
Yeah.
All of that separation was very difficult, but had to be done. I
Yeah.
think with all of that, it's helped a lot. And then, like I said, my diagnosis, which was brought on by anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Most women who present with anxiety and depression, many of them seem to have undiagnosed ADHD.
Yes.
And even my psychiatrist told me this, the guy who diagnosed me told me that now I see, now I can diagnose you as ADHD. Until just a year or so back, the whatever is the DSM-5, their
Yes.
guidelines for mental health disorders, it did not count what you have as ADHD, because they would think only men have ADHD, young boys, who can't sit still and constantly fidgeting with something, want to get up, run around. Those guys have ADHD because they are hyper. But I don't present like that. I can sit with you for hours here, not feel the need to get up and run around, but my mind is
Yes.
hyper active.
Yes.
So I'm thinking about 20 things even as we are talking right now. So that coupled with motherhood, coupled with child who's unwell, all of it just becomes so overwhelming that it led to anxiety and depression. So
Right.
people would treat women for just anxiety and depression
Yes.
and say, this is what you have. But
Yeah.
there is the underlying thing which they would never diagnose women as, because it's considered a man's privilege to have ADHD. Even in
Yeah.
diseases we
Even
are fighting. कि हमें disease ही diagnose कर दो. So anyway, so I was lucky, I guess, that by the time I got around to getting a diagnosis, this was diagnosable as ADHD.
yeah.
And now suddenly you'll see a
So
spurt of
many,
women
yes,
around the world
yes,
saying I have ADHD, because now finally they're recognizing a hyperactive mind as ADHD, which is how most women present.
right.
So yeah, so the diagnosis helped, getting away from that city helped, child growing up generally naturally, like you said, helps,
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
that.
And do you are you able to find time for yourself, Mahima? What do you like to do? Is there a defined time for yourself in your life?
Yeah, I try to make it now. Again, with the, this is how the diagnosis helps, because you know that when you're getting overwhelmed or you're getting anxious, you learn, now I'm learning to recognize the signs of it. And now when I'm, sometimes earlier it would be that I'm irrationally upset about something,
Yes.
and it is coming out on some other thing. So
Yeah.
it feels to an outsider that ye choti si baat pe why is she having such a big meltdown over this small
Yeah.
minor issue. But it's actually in your mind, it's big and it's
Yeah.
swollen up into something else. And some other things have exacerbated it, and other experiences, other interactions with people. And it's all kind of built up into a huge thing in your head. Even
Yeah.
though it looks minor outside, the trigger, the stimulus looks minor from outside, and the response will look this magnified and irrational. But
Yeah.
it's not irrational. So that's what I'm learning in therapy. It's rational because in your head it was big, so it is a rational response to a big thing. You're having a big response.
Yeah.
But how to not let it become big, how to kind of see it early on that, oh, now it's medium sized and now I
Yeah.
need an outlet. So it's made me better in communicating with my partner also, that hey, listen, right now I'm getting overwhelmed by this thing, can we please work on this thing, because I know it's not important to you, but it's important to me and my mental health.
Yeah.
For example, physical clutter.
Yeah.
He's fine with it. I'm also used to be okay with it. Like I don't like dirt. I'm very hygienic, but clutter is okay. If
Yeah.
there's 10 pens on my table, I know which one is where, and it's okay. But I know now that I think more clearly when it's not, there's no clutter. So I'll tell him that, listen, that table we need to declutter. I'm getting overwhelmed by it. Can we do it together? Can you help me with it? So now I'm getting better at communicating
Right.
and keeping my mental health at priority. So same thing applies to taking a break. Like sometimes I'll tell him that I'm getting very pissed off about this minor thing. And I think it's because I haven't stepped out of the house in 3 days because I work from home.
Yeah.
So, or the other thing is adult friendships. I haven't had an adult conversation is very long, because all I do is talk to my colleagues online,
Yeah.
and then husband,
Yeah.
and then domestic help, and my child. Like
Yeah.
this is not normal. Like
Yeah.
cannot have such a small group of people to interact with, and none of these people I'm having like an adult friendly conversation, right?
Right.
um an adult conversation, not in terms of illicit content, but in terms
Yeah.
of not
Yeah.
talking about Peppa Pig, right?
Yes.
So that's that sort of conversation. So that now I've started, even city. I've joined a book club. I've joined a Zumba class. I've tried to go make friends. I'm that creepy person who comes up to a stranger and says, hey, I think you and I can be good friends. Can we go out on a coffee date? I've become shameless in
Yes.
asking
Yes,
for coffee
Mahima.
dates.
Yes, Mahima. The answer is yes.
Let's do it. So yeah, that's what I've started to do that stuff. Again, it takes a lot of
Yeah.
conscious effort, because
Yeah.
it doesn't naturally come to us. Again,
Yeah.
like I said, nobody teaches mothers to care for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think the way to care for your baby is to first care for yourself.
And this is
So
not even counted as care, Mahima. If you
yeah.
talk about care, the definitions and the nuances that the care word holds, it's very different than what it
Yeah.
is actually. And I'm glad that women like you and women like us, a lot of women are stepping up. And, especially I think you mentioned that in therapy opens a lot of doors for us. And
Hmm.
reading opens a lot of doors for us when we recognize what care can look like beyond the usual confines of the definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so it's healthy care or unhealthy care, you'll get it one way or another. Like
Yeah.
addictions, all
Yeah.
sorts of addictions, whether you're addicted to TV, sugar, alcohol,
Yeah.
drugs, whatever kind of addiction you have, you're kind of, it's a symptom of a
Yeah.
deeper problem. You're solving something with it.
Right.
So how do you find a healthier way to solve that need, to meet that need? So
Yeah.
when, because your need went unmet for so long, it came out as in blah in like a big way and
Yeah.
became a massive addiction problem.
Yeah.
So there is some emotional unmet need or unresolved trauma. So you have to, if you start dealing with that stuff, you feel that the other stuff gets easier. The unhealthy stuff, that coping mechanisms that you had,
Yeah.
they kind of fall away because you don't need them anymore. And I'm not there yet 100%, but I'm getting there. I see that difference, that when I prioritize my care in this way, in the
Yeah.
healthy way of, developing human connection. Again, what we see health, our prioritizing our health as always going for a run or a jog. But that's not the only thing, and if
Yeah.
your body is not ready for lifting weights at the gym right away,
Yeah.
just going and having a coffee with a nice person and having a good conversation, that in itself is taking care of your health also.
Right.
So that's the other learning I'm having, that actually a lot of things के लिए mental health is the gateway to get there.
Yeah.
Whether it is being a better parent, being a healthier human, being a more involved, emotionally mature person,
Yeah.
whether it is your marriage or relationship, all
Yeah.
of it, if you take care of your mental health better,
Yeah.
a lot of it kind of resolves itself.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you prioritize your relationship in all of this with Salil? Are there any things that you said, you are rediscovering marriage and you are redefining what that looks like for each couple, I think, So
Hmm.
how does that work for you guys? I mean, I'm sure you can't ever subtract the child out of the equation, but are there times when it's just the two of you doing your thing as two people, or it's always the three of you?
Right now, because we are nuclear setup, I think the only time it's two of us is after our child goes to bed.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the thing, it's called, it's a Chinese term called revenge bedtime procrastination,
Yes.
which is, that thing where you postpone your bedtime because this is the only time you get, which is free time.
Yeah.
So both of us do a lot of that. It's not very healthy that we often, like, after a child goes to bed, I'll binge watching something.
Yeah.
Even reading a book. Chalo, now is the time. But yeah, we're trying to make more of us time in that. So far, it's been me time, because I think me time is an even more basic need.
Yeah.
वो ही नहीं है तो us time तक पहुंचता नहीं है.
Yeah.
So I'm also finding the more I do me time, the more I get appetite for us time.
Yes.
So yeah, that's also a thing of, again, rediscovering your each other as partners. So
Yeah.
you forget that part when you've been parents for so long. You
Yeah.
kind of, for us at least, it's been like that. It's been so hectic the last few years, especially for me.
Yeah.
I've been so consumed by the role of a mother that the role of a wife has been discarded pretty much, not even left behind. I've pretty much discarded that role. And I'm lucky that I'm not married to a guy who needs me to iron his shirts or feed his, make his food and all. I'm like, listen, you're an adult, go manage your life. I am here managing our child. Help me with this. I don't ask me for more help with other stuff. So because of that, all of that, kind of, we've become we are both very independent adults anyway. So we
Right.
don't really need help from each other on anything physically as such. But yeah, with as again, as the child becomes more independent, has his own friend circle, we are slowly finding more us time now.
Yeah.
It's still a work in progress, as with everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully getting better at it now.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that, Mahima, and I am sure, like listening to experience like yours and things that I hear from other parents energize me also as a mother, because I'm like, okay, mera time bhi aayega, we'll get there. But yeah, coming back to your child, Mahima, I want to understand from you and know from you is sometimes children do the smallest of things and they are like, oh my God, how did you do that and where did this come from? So I want us to know some things that your baby has done and you've been like blown, your mind has been blown. What are those, some of those things?
Yeah, one thing, he's a big reader. And a lot of parents ask me. Yesterday, I was at a play area with him, and some random parent came to me and said, how is your child reading for so long? And I was like, it's a problem. He's in a play area and he's reading books here also, because he's always reading books at home. And here also he's sitting in a corner reading books. I need him to go jump on the trampoline. I'm literally dragging my kid to the trampoline. And other parents are like, how is he reading so much? So I think being the child of readers,
Yeah,
both me and my husband, both of us are readers. And so he sees us reading. He's also like, when he was a baby, I used to read a lot to him,
yeah,
and now he's kind of started reading on his own. So it's really fun to discover new things he's learned, new words he uses, expressions he's using. So Diwali pe I got him the Calvin and Hobbes box set, which I always wanted to own.
yeah.
And I saw him reading some comics at school, and I was like, wait, he's reading comics now. Okay, so Calvin and Hobbes now is an excuse. So I got the box set, and he's just consumed by it. I have to again rip him away from that thing to feed him also. So he's into it. And something the other day, I was he wasn't eating and I was getting irritated. I was like, please just eat, please, why don't you eat this? How many times will I tell you eat? So he's like, Mama, don't get into a fit of rage. Fit of rage? ये क्या होता है? How was this? Like, you would say such amazing words he comes up with. The other day he said something like behavioral modifications. And I was like, what? How he picks up these big words, and often he's overhearing our conversations all the time, like single child, so just
Yeah,
constantly tuned into what parents are discussing. And often he'll be quiet looking the other way or reading a
yeah,
book, but I can, and we both are often reminding each other, just remember he's listening to us, not like
yeah.
whatever we are discussing. Because often after the end of the conversation, he come up to us and ask one big word that we used in the conversation, and he'll say, Mama, what is inapplicable? Like, how did you? Okay, so like 20 minutes back, I said that word in one sentence, and he's registered it, and that question he's coming up with now. So curious kitten. Uh, and the other thing I really am proud of is I've been talking to him. I because I work in gender, I write about gender. I talk to him a lot about things that people would consider maybe concepts beyond his age, but they are not. Like, I think sex education, uh, uh, respecting the other gender, this stuff
Yes,
kind of has to start immediately,
yes,
as soon as they can speak.
yes,
Even his school, I'm lucky I found a very, very progressive school also for him here. So the school also keeps giving us talks about this stuff. But I've already been like, use the anatomically correct names for your
yes,
private parts, and spoken to him about, private time or privacy,
yes,
consent.
yes.
So I think he was maybe 2.5 years old one day. And um, sorry, this will ruin your audio. Because
No,
I think he was 2.5 years old one time when he was in this habit as a baby to hold my hair and sleep. I had
yeah.
longer hair, so it was easier. So he would hold my hair and sleep always tightly. So in the middle of the night, one day he woke up, and by that time I have kind of released myself, and I'm sleeping. So he wakes up at 3 a.m. and he wakes me up and he's like, Mama, do I have your consent to hold your hair?
What a delight. What
I
what a little delight.
I know. I was like so proud. 3 a.m. I have tears in my eyes at what this beautiful baby. I was like, yes, thank you for asking. You have my consent. So yeah, just say some one nugget will come every day. It just makes it all worth it.
Yeah, I think it even listening to it is so so powerful that I'm having goosebumps all over. It's so beautiful, Maima. And now if you could just sit with your pre-parent self, and even though you had a lot of preparation coming into this journey, but
Hmm.
a lot of it was unexpected. So if you could sit with your pre-parent self and tell her something which you know now, what would be that?
Yeah, I think I've been talking about that all through now, like stuff I wish I knew. I think the number one thing would be to take care of myself. I think I would tell myself that this is going to be hard, and you already know it's going to be hard, but you don't know that it's the answer to it is not the self-sacrificial parent that you've been taught is the right way of parenting. It
Yeah.
is the self-prioritizing parent. You have to prioritize yourself, care for yourself, and the route to your child's happiness goes through your happiness. If you are unhappy, unhealthy, depressed, anxious, million other things that mothers are made to be, and by sacrificing their well-being for the child or for others, if you are like that, it's impossible for you to give your child the mother they need and deserve. And
Right.
so if you don't make yourself happy, if you don't make yourself, comfortable, if you don't treat yourself once in a while, the one great thing I learned in therapy, or I probably read somewhere, was that treat yourself the way you would treat your child. So you have to come sometimes, reparent yourself.
Yeah.
So the kind of unconditional love, forgiveness, indulgence that you give to your child, if you give yourself even a fraction of that,
Yeah.
that is the way to be a great mother, I think. Because that's what we all aspire to be, great mother. We don't want to be great to ourselves, we want to be great for the child. But
Right.
even if you want to be great for the child, the way to that is to be good to yourself.
Yeah, and I think you have covered a lot of what I'm going to ask next in your this response of yours. But still, if you were to if as a final word, as a parting word, if you were to leave our listeners with insight or one advice for how could they be better parents or better human beings caring for themselves, what would it be?
Yeah, the thing that I said in the last answer, I think, is that you have to be your own parent in some ways. Kind of becoming a parent is also becoming a child again. And everyone has some unhealed wounds or some unprocessed childhood trauma or something that we don't want to even face to ourselves, let alone share with others.
Yeah,
But yeah, you have to kind of, that work is inescapable. I think that work has to be done on
yeah,
yourself, on healing yourself in and nurturing yourself like you would your child, assuming you are the, like most parents, want to be a good parent, want to give your child all the love in the world. Things and all, many people also measure it by things. I want to give my child an iPad and all. No, that's not the answer. The thing is about the time, love, affection that you want to give your child. Give yourself the same kind of, even a same is impossible. Even as I'm saying it, I can't give myself that much. But yeah, even a fraction of it, if you give to yourself, that extend that kind of kindness, especially for mothers, I think, who are often hard on ourselves because the world teaches us to be hard on ourselves.
right.
So yeah, be kinder to yourself, be more forgiving of your flaws as a mother that you've been taught are flaws. And as long as you're doing your best, you're a good mother, you're a good father.
Yeah,
um and for fathers, please prioritize your wife's well-being, especially if she's gone through childbirth, which is just, how they used to say cliche that it's a rebirth for the woman, but
yes.
that cliche is true.
True.
It
Yeah,
feels like my life before childbirth feels like a past life to me.
yeah.
It really does. Uh,
PC and before child and after child.
BCAD. Correct. So I know when I prepare for job interviews, I cannot remember for the life of me what I did before that.
Yeah,
So I have to like go and read up that, oh, I did this also, I did that also, because
yeah,
half of it has leaked out of my brain now. So
yeah,
yeah, if especially if I was gone through childbirth, but even if she hasn't, even if she's an adoptive mother, motherhood is hard. It's the
right.
like the toughest job in the world. You could be the CEO of Apple, and if your wife is a new mother, her job is harder than yours.
Yeah,
So give her that respect, give her that margin for error, give her that kindness, and prioritize her, and the child will automatically get prioritized.
yeah. I think such powerful and beautiful words, Maima. I think you couldn't have said it better. Anybody couldn't have said it better. Thank you for saying it for all of us. Thank you for being here, and thank you for in whole of this conversation. I think I just particularly sidelined what you do. I must tell our people what you do. You should all be reading and listening to what Mahima does. Her newsletter is called Womaning in India, and it's a beautiful, beautiful testimony to her beautiful mind. You should just go and read what she writes. It's a wonderful collection of her thoughts, and I think I owe you big thanks to from all of us, from all of our gender, that you are doing this for all of us. Thank you, Mahima, for doing what you do.
Thanks, Neha. It's not just for our gender, it's for all genders. I hope
Thank you.
everyone will benefit from the work that we all are doing.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Neha. It's been a wonderful conversation for me
It's
also.
been a wonderful conversation indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Mahima, your openness, your honesty. And I think your resilience is truly, truly inspiring. I know our listeners will walk away with so much insights and comfort from your words, because they are all trying to fight an invisible standard, which I think is such an impossible feat to achieve. And it's been a joy to hear about the incredible journey you and Salil are on, and the beautiful bond you're building with your baby. And thank you once again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Neha. It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning into Parenthood. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to share it with a friend who might need some extra encouragement. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any future conversations with other amazing parents. Until next time, keep embracing the ups and downs, and remember, you're not alone on this journey. This is Neha Garg signing off from Parenthood. Take care. Bye bye.